It's not exactly controversial to call Steph Curry the best shooter in basketball history, but what if I told you that he's the best screener to ever play the game? If you're like me, your first thought is, wait, what about all those big men who set bruising picks? Surely a small guard can't match the broad, powerful screens of a great big. But Curry's screens aren't effective because they're powerful. They're effective because of his gravity, a force so strong that it's left a completely unprecedented statistical footprint radiating in the background of the game. In the entire history of the league, and probably the sport in general, Wardell's Stephen Curry is the king of gravity. I'm saying his full name like that because it's difficult to overstate how far ahead he is when it comes to gravitational warping.
Gravity is pulling all the stars in the area towards this spot.
When we think of the definitive Curry play, certainly the deep pull-up three comes to mind, or some classic crossover dribble. But I also kind of think it might be when he's off ball, goes curling around a screen and brings two defenders with him so his teammates left wide open. This is similar to when defenses send two defenders at him off the pick and roll, only instead of a 4-on-3 behind the play, this double team without the ball often leaves teammates wide open at the hoop. This is a completely different animal than the traditional on-ball double team because the defense is always focused on the ball. So a traditional double has a singular focus where the other three help defenders are coordinating to react to what the ball handler does. But when there's a double team away from the ball, most defenders are still focused on the ball. Even if help defenders recognize the breakdown, their attention is still split between the ball threat and the off-ball threat. After all, you can't just forget about the ball handler. The first rule of defense is stopping the ball for a very good reason. So these off-ball double teams are typically more destructive than traditional doubles, and besides drilling threes himself, these gravity assists lead to tons of home runs and add a massive amount of offensive value. By the way, I wouldn't object to calling these Curry assists or even Miller assists, but that gets clunky when it's a play that requires a passer to get an actual assist. Anyway, there are some games where Steph never has one of these gravity assists, but there are also a ton of games where he has multiple gravity assists, manufacturing easy layups without touching the ball. And while this is probably Curry's most prevalent kind of gravity assist, Steph's gravity shows up in other places as well. It's particularly nasty on handoff actions where the ball handler's left completely uncovered. Even though defenders often watch the ball, the speed of these actions catches them entirely off guard. And so that gravitational pull on the ball handler's defender as well creates a red carpet to the rim. Opponents will organically roam off weak shooters like Draymond Green to help protect the paint. Only that allows them to screen for Steph in a 2-on-1 situation. So most defenders hug up on these screeners to help on Curry's actions, and that leaves three people reacting to Steph here, and the lane's a ghost town. Sometimes Curry's gravity is really subtle. This is the first play of the 2017 finals. Kevin Love takes 2 steps towards Steph. That leaves him behind the pick and roll action and makes the passing window larger. And as an added boost, Curry's cut occupied weak side defenders along with Klay Thompson's gravity. And I guess Zaza wasn't really in a layup mood. 5 minutes later, it's another Durant pick and roll. Curry's defender is in position to help, but just glues himself to Steph, and this time it's a bucket. So a lot of times he's creating these tiny micro advantages, dragging 2 defenders for just a second, which then gives Durant a closeout to attack, and the help's a little late too, because they're worried about Steph and Klay shooting on the weak side. This is literally death by 1,000 small cuts, opening tiny but valuable windows that wouldn't otherwise exist. Curry moves down to the baseline, making his defender the natural helper here, but he's stuck on Steph, so the big has to come down from the free throw line. Here they push it in transition. Jason Tatum's pulled way out on Curry, and the big is out high to defend those screening actions. And in early offense like this, the weak side defenders typically touch the paint first, and this low man near the baseline is in position to help on any threats. But Curry basically kills the idea of a traditional low man. Boston just switches here, and when they switch back, Tatum's staring at Steph and can't offer any help. And maybe more importantly, the big man is lifted because he's worried about these shooting threats. Most defenses want their big man in that low position so he can come over and protect the rim with his size. But with Curry running around, opposing bigs need to help on those screens. Heck, even this defender would normally come over to help, but he's overclocking worrying about Steph. Curry has this effect on all potential help situations. He's being chased, the ball comes right by him, and his man can't even slide 3 feet to stop a layup. And this level of obsessive focus can be even more extreme. Al Horford's chasing him here. Al's in perfect position to help on the primary action, but he's staring at Steph and is just pulled right out of the way. This time, it's Defensive Player of the Year Kawhi Leonard sitting right under the basket, and he's worried about Curry as a layup is happening 3 feet away. And this might be my favorite, where if we look at what the camera sees, Curry actually walks Fred VanVleet into perfect help position. But when we watch the play in real life, VanVleet is so telescoped on Steph that he gets dunked on without even knowing it. Of course, teams will just outright face guard Curry on entire possessions, which provides yet another gravitational boost for his teammates. Again, these aren't the explicit double-teamed off-ball assists we've seen, but playing 4-on-4 is just a little harder than 5 versus 5 for the defense, because there's more space to cover with 4 bodies and one less defender to slide over and help. Curry knows this, so he'll happily stay outside sometimes, here pointing out exactly where Memphis will run out of defenders after that primary action. And the 50-foot face guard is just one of many extreme defenses that's been concocted over the years to stop Steph's scoring, including a box and one and a variety of Steph-specific zones from teams hoping to limit Curry's shooting in exchange for his teammates getting shots that aren't quite as efficient as when he's running around destroying conventional coverages. Some of the most extreme forms of his gravity also come in transition, where the speed magnifies everything. Instead of running back to the paint, defenders will often stay on the outside with Steph, and suddenly it's a 2-on-1 instead of a 3-on-2. And when 2 players jump toward Curry in transition, the results are genuinely comical, with defenders basically parting the Red Sea for a superstar dribbling the ball toward the basket. Now, notice just how many different ways Curry's gravity opens up easy shots for his teammates. He perpetually stretches out defenses, often destroys the idea of traditional help, distracts defenders standing right in the lane, breaks transition principles, and gashes teams by curling off screens. And on all of these plays, he's rewarded with 0 points and 0 assists. So, just how valuable is all of this gravity? Many statisticians have attempted to create gravity scores to compare how much a player occupies defenders or pulls them away from the hoop, but that still doesn't tell us how much these plays might be worth in the grand scheme of things. You might have noticed that almost every play in this video ends with a layup or a dunk. This is the hallmark of shooting gravity. It pulls defenders away from the basket. So perhaps the only current way to really capture gravity like this is to look at how someone's teammates shoot at the rim when he's on the court versus off of it. I've compiled multi-year samples of every scoring, shooting, and assist leader this century. From left to right is the change in rim frequency for a player's teammates when he's on versus off the court. From bottom to top is the change in teammates' field goal percentage at the rim. For instance, Kyle Korver's Atlanta teammates took 30% of their shots at the rim without him, but that number jumped to 36% when he played, a 6% increase, and they shot 3% better on those shots too. When Reggie Miller played without Jamal Tinsley at the end of his career, his teammates took 5% more of their shots at the rim with a 3% jump in field goal percentage. Most movement shooters with large sample sizes follow this pattern of opening up the rim for teammates while improving their field goal percentage, sometimes even spiking field goal percentage. And Curry's teammate Klay Thompson actually shows the second biggest impact on the rim if we remove Durant and Curry from the lineups. When Klay plays without them, the other Warriors' rim frequency jumps 8%, and their rim field goal percentage is a whopping 9% better. This matches the great passers of the century who are diming up their teammates directly at the rim to get them these easy shots. Deep breaths. In order to show you Steph Curry's impact, I need to resize the graph, because without Klay or Kevin Durant, Curry's teams shot 18% more of their shots at the rim, with a 5% jump in field goal percentage to boot. Steph actually had one of the best gravitational footprints in 2013 and 14, but the sorcery of his range, volume, and perpetual movement took hold in 2016 when a cartoonish 48% of his teammates' shots came at the rim in minutes without Klay Thompson. For perspective there, only 7 teams this century have even taken 40% of their shots at the rim, and this is huge because the rim is the highest value shot on the court. So even if Golden State shot the same field goal percentage at the basket, Curry would be nearly doubling the number of 60% shots that his teammates are taking. Now, some of this effect still comes from Curry's passing out of on-ball gravity situations, where he's a plenty good passer himself. But he also moved off-ball more under Coach Steve Kerr. So most of this value is the totality of all that off-ball gravity. We can also see the silhouette of this gravity in how often these rim attempts are assisted. The Warriors were outliers in the pace and space era for assisted shots at the rim. 2/3 of all of their layups were assisted during the Durant years. That's 17% ahead of league average. And some of that was having almost no post players or elite penetrators, but the percentage of those rim scores that were assisted spiked with Steph, jumping to 21% ahead of league average. And there's one final area all this shooting gravity leaves its mark: when Curry is screening. Because no one wants to leave him, Steph often eliminates 2 defenders with his picks. So on a play like this with 2 staggered screens, the second screen defender would normally just switch here, but he's stuck in Steph's orbit and it's a total breakdown. Heck, Curry doesn't even need to make contact to have an effect. His defender's hugging him, the other defender tries to avoid the screen, but that just creates a runway to the rim. And here he's setting up a back screen, and because his defender's facing the wrong way, that's pretty much all she wrote. When teams deny him the ball by top blocking like this, screening is actually an awesome counter, because Curry's defender is just in no position to help, which again eliminates 2 players. And I think the most powerful part of Steph's screening game is it can come from nowhere. So his cuts turn into screens and catch the defense off guard. Since so many defenders don't want to leave him, when those cuts become picks, it is just game over. And this works on or off the ball, where he can run around looking for a shot, then just morph into a screener, and that crazy gravity takes both defenders out of the equation. These random little butt screens are probably my favorite. Is it a cut? No, it's a pick that no one is ready for. And again, that kind of destroys the idea of screening coverages. He takes out Domantas Sabonis. His own man doesn't even care about the ball, and no one on the weak side had any idea a ball screen was coming. In addition to the surprise element, little guys get away with more contact sometimes when they set screens. And Steph will get physical, sometimes getting hard, sturdy picks that are completely legal, but other times he can blur the lines by getting a little chip block as he flies on by. Remember, Curry's defenders are super glued to him because of his perpetual danger as a potential shooter. So he's a live threat all the time, even right here. And if his defender pays attention to the ball handler, Steph can just fake the screen and run into open space. This ability to fake or ghost a screen is another dimension traditional bigs can't match in terms of screening value. And there's even an off-ball version too, where Curry doesn't set the pick but slips instead, and that can draw in more defenders. And he really blends his cutting and screening game away from the ball, because it's hard to tell which mode he's in. For instance, is he getting ready to cut off this screen here, or is he setting the screen for Klay instead? Here's another one. Is he getting ready to fly out for a three on this, or turn into a screener and we're back to layupville? He can even fake setting a screen, slowing down here to create confusion. Then he turns back into a shooter, and that just buckles the defense. All this ambiguity makes his screens that much deadlier. Instead of curling off a Draymond pick, he screens for Green. They don't want to switch, and it's free throws. And Steph uses this back screen as a counter when he's being hugged or face guarded like this, because his defender can't help on that basket cut. So think about the decision making here. Curry knows the defense is hugging him. Instead of looking for a screen, he wants to set one as a counter, tells Draymond to go so he can take out Steven Adams, and that is a screen assist. If we look at off-ball screening in the entire optical tracking era, Curry doesn't set the most screens. He's too busy shooting and ball handling, but his off-ball screening ranks number one in efficiency, and even folding in on-ball screens, he's still first across the decade, just ahead of sharpshooters Kevin Durant and Jamal Murray. See, the beauty of Curry's gravity is that it combines so many phases of the game: cutting, using screens, and screening himself, with his goal on every possession to activate himself as a threat from anywhere at any time. So, yeah, some big men may accrue more screening value from sending a ton more picks, but Curry may be the most valuable screener per screen in NBA history because his screens are part of his perpetual movement game, and all that gravity might just make him the most powerful offensive force in the history of the sport. To support this channel, patreon.com/thinkingbasketball. That's where we have proprietary stats on teams and players throughout the year. We also have a Discord community, and you can get all of our extra video content over there, or sign up on YouTube as a member, where we also live stream the podcast. Thanks for watching all the way to the end on this one. Hope you enjoyed it and that you are having a great day.